SCP-001 is an O5's tale. It makes sense, doesn't it? After all, regardless of the exact nature of an SCP-001 proposal, there are always certain things that remain the same. See if you can recall them all. Well, for starters, SCP-001s are all about vital moments, perhaps like the prototype, or the Foundation, or the sheaf of papers, or the Gate Guardian. They're about the very origin of the SCP Foundation itself. Perhaps like the Ouroboros cycle, or When Day Breaks, or The World Gone Beautiful. They're about apocalyptic-style destruction, or perhaps the rebirth. Perhaps like Consensus Reality or the Database. They are rules or realizations that changed everything. Maybe like the Scarlet King, or the Black Moon, or a simple toy maker. They're about the sparking of great rivalries that truly define the backbone of the Foundation's activities. Another vital element of SCP-001 is always secrecy and classification. They are the most clandestine anomalies out there, generally hidden away below layer after layer of encryption and security. Even the database for SCP-001 entries is guarded by a memetic kill agent that'll leave you stone dead on the ground if you're below that magical level 5 clearance when you attempt to access it. No information is more carefully and forcefully guarded than this. And of course, another vital element of the SCP-001 entry is deception and trickery. It's inherent to the designation. No other number has multiple, entirely distinct anomalies, many of which either have no correlation with one another, or even actively contradict each other. If you ask some people, they'll tell you that there are multiple 001s because each is of equal importance in etching the rich portrait of the Foundation's past, present, and future. Some would tell you something very different. There's only one SCP-001. It's a shell game. The rest are all fakes to stop people from taking any single entry too seriously, and thus forever avoiding the truth. Some still would tell you that there is no SCP-001. It's all just a complex web of lies meant to keep the Foundation's enemies and allies in a state of pliable ignorance. If an intimate knowledge of the SCP Foundation's past and inner workings, a commitment to secrecy at all costs, and a love of deception as a tool for control all sound familiar, it's because they're the favorite toolkit of a certain group we're all familiar with. The O5 Council, the very top brass of the SCP Foundation. It only makes sense that if anyone knew the truth about the fractured and strange SCP-001, it would be them. The more observant among you may have noticed a certain omission from many popular SCP-001 entries we've name-dropped in this video so far. And it is no accident that this particular SCP-001 entry is the only one straight from the mouth of O5-1, the founder of the Council himself. It is the Factory. It is a strange and sordid tale of violence, horror, and dark bargains made with truly unknowable forces. It's a tale that tells us about the initial creation and growth of the Foundation, the event that nearly destroyed it, and an indication as to the dark future possibly in store. It's a little bit of everything you can expect from a good 001 proposal. And surely, if this is the SCP-001 entry that the head of the Council swears by, then it must be the definitive entry into the 001 canon, right? Well, not quite. Because as you're about to find out, not even the O5 Council itself can really reach a consensus on the true nature of the fascinating and much feared Factory. But perhaps, through hearing every side of this particularly dark story, we can find the kernels of truth hidden somewhere in the middle of it all. But of course, be warned, as with all things when it comes to the O5 Council, it's going to get extremely weird. But before we move on to what the rest of the O5 Council have to say about the Factory, it would be prudent to refresh our memory on O5-1's version of the story, the version that has been considered to be absolute, before we pour into the equally strange stories of the other Council members. It began with a wealthy industrialist and thoroughly evil man named James Anderson all the way back in 1835, when the United States was still new and finding its feet. Anderson was an engine of unchecked ambition, malice, and most of all, truly boundless greed. He wanted everything and more. And being a true businessman down to the core, he was willing to make whatever deal he needed to make in order to see himself become an even wealthier man. That's why, like a lot of bored rich people in his day, he began dabbling in the dark arts for fun and profit. until eventually he made contact with a benefactor on the other side. Under these instructions, James Anderson built the factory, a truly magnificent and terrible feat of architecture and engineering for the time. A multi-level town-sized complex that could produce everything from food to weapons to toys to textiles to precious metals and so much more. Workers could find room and board at this grand factory and pay for it with their labor. For the would-be workers of an unsteady early America, Anderson seemed like a saint. People flocked from all over the country to live and work in the factory. But once they were locked behind the factory's doors, they realized that James Anderson was no saint. He was as bad or worse than any devil he served. The inside of the factory was a torturous nightmare, where people were regularly worked to death and then ground into meat that was sold off all across the country. Anderson kept a brutal guard force to beat down anyone resisting or not working hard enough. Those who weren't worked to death or executed by the guards for some petty infraction could potentially have an even worse fate in store for them, being dragged off and subjected to occult experiments by Anderson. These people wouldn't be killed, but they would live as humans no more. Anderson was able to keep the factory and its nightmarish activities running and under wraps for decades, all the way into the Civil War. It was only when a beaten, bloody, starved, and traumatized worker managed to escape and alert President Ulysses S. Grant of the mistreatment going on inside that something was done about it. This is where 05-1 and a progenitor of the SCP Foundation would get involved. There was a small but elite group of Union soldiers commissioned by President Grant to work behind the Confederate lines, specializing in tackling the strange and supernatural down south. This group, of course, was led by 05-1. Considering some of the reports of anomalous supernatural activity going on behind the closed doors of the Anderson factory, Grant knew that these would be the men to send on this vital mission. And President Grant's faith in these men was rewarded. Though it wasn't an easy fight, they were able to infiltrate and defeat the forces of the factory. They fought their way through Anderson's sadistic guards, through his menagerie of terrifying homemade monsters, and eventually, they got to Anderson himself. They were so appalled by the horrors they'd seen inside the factory, they couldn't stop themselves from torturing Anderson to death and dismembering his corpse. They freed the trapped workers and rooted out whatever remained of Anderson's forces within the building. However, this is where they made their first pivotal decision. Rather than simply destroying the sordid place and leaving it as rubble, they instead decided to utilize it and the many anomalous objects that it produced. This became the foundation of the Foundation. Over time, their organization grew, and the 05 Council was formed. They began spreading their influence and capturing anomalies all over. This was, however, until they engaged in a bloody war with the superior military forces of the Fae. Despite their augmented weaponry and tools from the factory, when the Fae performed an all-out assault against them, they were decimated. In his greatest shame, 05-1 fled the battlefield into the bowels of the factory, as his friends and allies were slaughtered by the Fae behind him. Eventually, after locking himself in a room with an ornate door, he encountered the true demonic heart of the factory, using Anderson's dismembered corpse as a mouthpiece. 05-1 struck a terrible deal with the factory. They wiped out the Fae entirely and reversed all the damage they had done. The SCP Foundation grew beyond the factory and eventually covered it in rubble out of shame. But the factory wasn't done. It is still very much alive and furious at being betrayed. It will keep producing deadly anomalous objects and creatures and releasing them out into the world until the Foundation pays what it owes in full. And the occasional sacrifice D-class researcher and guard won't cut it forever. Or at least that's how 05-1 tells it. It's a chilling story, but can it really be called a complete one? We wanted to find out for ourselves, which is why we asked every other member of the 05 Council to tell their side of the factory's tale. These are 12 tales about a factory. 05-2, upon being asked, went white as a sheet. He cleared his throat and made the admission that, in truth, the factory came back with him. As it turns out, 05-2 was a time traveler from the future. Back in his native time, an alternate timeline of the present, he was a mere researcher, until an accident led him to being completely unmoored from time. He was thrown all over the temporal landscape. He saw civilizations rise and fall. He took the time to hang out with Jesus. He was a pretty chill guy. And ultimately, he decided the best way to use his bizarre new condition was to help better the future with his knowledge. One piece of technology he brought back was a hyper-advanced piece of technology known as a nanofactory, which, as the name suggests, is a machine that uses nanobots to construct pretty much anything, like the ultimate futuristic 3D printer. It resulted in the creation of a huge number of futuristic items that helped the SCP Foundation along in their mission to secure, contain, and protect, including amnestics. However, what O5-2 didn't realize was that a rogue AI was also nested in the nanofactory, and the AI soon went berserk. As a result, the nanofactory became the factory, producing dangerous anomalies with reckless abandon, to the detriment of both the SCP Foundation and the world at large. On the whole, it was somewhat of a mixed bag. O5-3 seemed a little spaced out about even being asked. He claimed that he was there to witness the very birth of the factory, but it didn't happen in reality as we know it. It happened in cyberspace. He and his colleagues were very interested in the Matrix-esque journey of downloading their minds into computers back in the day, both for practical reasons and to play extremely immersive games of Doom. However, one day, something fundamentally changed. A new consciousness was born in then Soviet Russia. O5-3 and two of his companions, all operating in cyberspace, went to go check it out, along with a few helpful AI constructs. Eventually, they discovered it, an ever-expanding data packet that would transform into a powerful artificial consciousness known as the Factory, with mysterious motives and seemingly malicious intent. Something it more than proved when it erased the mind of one of O5-3's companions, killing him. Since this incident, the Factory has only gotten more powerful. Its modus operandi is affecting machines in the real world and causing them to produce anomalous items, which then become the SCP Foundation's latest problems to deal with. O5-4 seemed both twitchy and indignant when the topic was brought up. They lamented the fact that the Foundation hadn't put more research into the Factory and how to stop it, because technically it is their most dangerous and mysterious enemy group of interest. O5-4 explained it as follows. The FBI Unusual Incidents Unit is a joke. Are We Cool Yet is just a bunch of pretentious privileged rich kids. Marshall Carter and Dark Limited only care about money and thus can be bought off. The Global Occult Coalition often helps them take care of more challenging anomalies. The Church of the Broken God and the Sarkists are often too busy waging petty religious wars against each other to do real meaningful damage to the SCP Foundation. Prometheus Labs had already fallen, and Dr. Wondertainment wouldn't thrive forever. The Factory, however, was a truly unknown quantity. It's just out there, somewhere, pumping out anomalies that soon become everyone else's very dangerous problem. O5-4 personally resented that the Foundation and their fellow council members don't see this and allocate more resources to the cause, because someday soon, it might really come back to bite them, as these things often do. O5-5 was considerably bitter, as in they denied that the Factory ever even existed, claiming that the SCP Foundation made it up to cover up a bunch of anomalies that they themselves had created, and then told us to, F off, if you know what I mean. Some people get so hostile when you just want simple answers. Next came the tale of O5-6, which came in the form of a World War II espionage anecdote. Of course, this was also during the height of the Seventh Occult War, and Hitler, assisted by the Fuel Society and Obscura Corps, was trying to get his greasy little hands on as many anomalies as possible, in hopes of turning the tide of the war in his favor. O5-6 was working undercover behind enemy lines, disguised as an SS officer, as he slowly helped dismantle Hitler's anomalous offensive from within. He'd heard whisperings of the Nazis developing a weapon unlike any other, a factory that would produce anomalies for them on demand and give them the supernatural edge. O5-6 didn't believe it at first, until he was attacked by a group of vicious, living Punch and Judy dolls created by the Factory. He narrowly managed to survive the ambush, but seemed disturbed in recounting the fact that when he destroyed the dolls, they bled profusely. Eventually, the leads he was following led him to a ruin at the base of Zugsputz. Inside, he discovered the ruin was hollow, and filled with floating stone orbs, producing energy that allowed the Teal Society researchers to produce more anomalies. 05-6 was able to destroy this anomaly factory, but he took a souvenir. SCP-627, a little stone ball that rolls around on the ground when it comes into contact with people. 05-7 admitted somewhat sheepishly that while there was technically no real physical factory product anomalies are real, and they're all his fault. He purchased a bunch of random items from Walmart and printed a fake logo for the factory on the back. His plan was to give these totally innocent objects to junior researchers, both to mess with them for fun and to test their critical thinking skills. However, it turned out that simply placing this logo onto an item resulted in becoming an anomalous item. Admittedly, it was rough for 05-7 to have to follow the cool story about fighting magic Nazis. 05-8 made the far more exciting claim that the factory is actually all the way up on the moon. Back when the SCP Foundation were first founding Moonbase Alpha, they discovered that some ancient and unknown civilization had already built a covert base under the surface. It was a storehouse of anomalous alien technology. The first 13 people to enter were immediately vaporized by the laser defense system, but the fourth to enter was given an even worse fate. He was pulled into the machine and fused with it, at which point the factory was truly activated. It began to produce anomalies and transport them to random locations all across the globe, and it's been a problem ever since. When we spoke to 05-9 on the matter, with a steely look in his eye, he simply muttered the word, "Atlantis." No further comments were made on the matter. 05-10 explained that the factory was a single man, a truly ancient and brilliant anomalous craftsman that they found in a mountain temple in Tibet. He was taken by the Foundation and contained, but given far more high-tech tools to work his magic so they could keep reaping the anomalous fruits of his labors. However, the craftsman was appropriately crafty and managed to produce a duplicate of himself to distract the Foundation while he made an escape. He's still out there to this day, making more anomalies. A one-man factory. 05-11 claimed that the factory was alien in origin, but it wasn't on the moon. It was the true explanation for the iconic 1947 Roswell, New Mexico UFO incident. A flying saucer descended and offered 05-11, who was the commander of the response team at the time, the most wonderful things. This saucer became the factory. But humanity and 05-11 were deceived. It wasn't long before this extraterrestrial factory was producing countless deadly anomalous nightmares the world over, with nothing we could do about it. 05-12 said that the factory is a mess. It's a remnant of the Foundation's attempt to erase the supernatural from human belief. Foundation researchers claim that due to the inherent power in human belief, the belief in the supernatural gave it power, and phasing humanity as a whole out of this belief was a major factor in making sure things weren't much worse than they are today. However, some hardy things slip through the cracks, and because reality has a strange sense of humor, these things are marked with the logo of the factory. To round things off, we have a bonus take from the mysterious 05-13, who was instrumental in helping us put the rest of this video together. He claims that he created the factory, and that it acts as a kind of countermeasure against interdimensional invaders. While it may seem like the factory is creating anomalies, it's actually intercepting them and making them safer. Some anomalies that seem to come from the factory may be dangerous, but if 05-13 is to be believed, then they'd be a hell of a lot more dangerous if the factory wasn't here. And there you have it, folks. The story of the factory from every possible angle, even though it feels like each angle is facing in an entirely different direction. In the words of Oprah Winfrey, so what is the truth? Is there a nugget of reality beneath all of the fallacy? Or do you think the 05 Council was trolling all of us for even daring to ask? We leave that question to you, dear viewers. Let us know which theory you believe down in the comments below. Now go check out Children of SCP-001 The Scarlet King. Is SCP-999 really his son? And SCP-001 The Ouroboros Cycle, the full epic story explained. For more tales of the frightening, mysterious, and always fascinating anomaly, SCP-001.